I heard your post-Man of Steel interview saying that you wouldn't have come to Catalans if you didn't believe they could get to the grand finals and win trophies. Can you just give us an insight into your decision-making process and what impressed you when you first spoke to them about it?
Well, first of all, I already knew Steve from time with the England team, and when Steve was at Sydney Roosters and New Zealand Warriors, we'd always stayed in touch, and I know that Steve's. I know him pretty well. So the first point of contact was Steve, and he just basically said, "Look, we're trying to build something here," and Steve didn't bullshit me. He said, Steve didn't paint any pictures. He said, "Look, this is where we're at. I've inherited a team in 2017. I've inherited this team. It's not exactly the squad I want, but I've got a couple of years to build that." So he explained where he wanted to go and potential signings, things like that. And I thought, yeah, it sounds pretty good. I came over. I played for Wigan here, and I met the owner, Bernard. And any of you that have met Bernard will know exactly what he's like. But he's the most passionate Catalan Dragons fan you will ever meet, and it just so happens that he owns the club. Sometimes it's a dangerous combination. The clubs have had owners that want to get too involved and think, it's their little baby, so they want to get involved, and it doesn't work. Where Bernard's a very intelligent businessman. He's a mad, passionate rugby league fan, mad, passionate Dragons fan. He created this club, but he runs it in the right way. So when I went to meet him, I went to meet him at his abattoir. I wasn't sure exactly what to expect. I don't know if I gave him a no that day, I might have ended up in sausages. But I met him, and he explained, where the club was going and what he wanted for the club. And just speaking to him, Bernard's got as soon as you speak to him, you feel how passionate he is about this club and what he wants. And so it was a pretty easy sell once I knew that, and spoke to Steve, like I say, about the team stuff and knowing where he wanted to guide the team. Then speaking to an owner that's got that drive and got that sort of commitment to a club. If you can get a balance of those two right, then there's no reason a club can't be successful. So I was sure straight away, really. And I didn't, when I left Wigan, I didn't speak to anybody, not one of the club. I spoke to Catalan, and Wigan offered me a 4-year deal, and it was one or the other, and it wasn't a money decision. The money was very similar. So it just came down to me wanting a change, but the opportunity to get a change and go to a club that's sort of on the rise was an easy sell for me. So that was my decision. I was always confident that during my time here that we could be successful over the next 3 years. And so far, we've been close, but this year's the one where we can actually seal that.
I was interested by what you said to Gaz about the trying to get into Tesco in Wigan on grand final week and how it's very different where you are now. Does that make it a bit easier for you? Does it release the pressure a little bit?
Yeah, it definitely does. I'm sure the Saints players will be going through it this week. It's Wigan's a goldfish bowl of rugby league, and there's no getting away from it. There is no break from it. It's really, really intense, and it's not really that enjoyable. That side of it. We do everything we can. Every minute we spent at training, you're thinking rugby, you're focusing on. When there's a big game coming up like this, it's you spend all your time thinking about that. When you go home, it's difficult to not think about it. But what makes it worse is everybody on you all the time, and it's not enjoyable. You have a lot of stuff to deal with. Your phone pinging, everybody wanting tickets, or who's playing this week, or such a thing, and it's draining, and that was a norm for me at Wigan, and that wasn't always finals at Wigan. That's Wigan Saints derbies or semi-finals, Challenge Cup games. You just get hammered. Where here there's nothing like that, and it's been a nice change.
Obviously, when you were at Wigan and then you had your stint in New Zealand and went back to Wigan, has being here in a different environment kind of opened your eyes to there is a better quality of life? You can play rugby league at the highest level and not be wondering about what people are going to say to you all the time.
Yeah, my quality of life in Wigan was great as well. Wigan's not a place that I dislike. I love that. I love Wigan and the people of Wigan, and got a lot of friends and family there. But the reason I came to France was because I had the experience of living in New Zealand and loved living somewhere different and the challenge that brings, and the things that you learn about the world in a sense. So learning about the Maori culture and all that was brilliant for me, and being in somewhere so different to England, which I loved, but the timing for me to go back to Wigan was good. My wife was pregnant, and timing fell right. And then timing to come here again was, I still had that urge to go and experience something different like I had in New Zealand, but wanted to do it a little bit close to home. So it was a dream come true that there's a club in, an amazing, beautiful part of the world with a great rugby team. And I'm back in Wigan to pick up my Heinz beans every 2 weeks as well. So it's, not too far from home. It's a dream spot to be in.
I was talking to Steve yesterday, and it's funny you said Heinz beans. He was talking about spaghetti hoops and the things.
Spaghetti hoops. That's how he celebrates a win. He has 2 tins of spaghetti hoops if we win. He's only half a tin if we lose.
He also said he finds himself embracing things that he never thought he would. So, as a daft thing, rather than pints of lager, he's getting into his red wines, which he never thought he'd do. Is there anything similar for you? Anything that you found yourself getting quite into that you wouldn't have thought?
Well, I got into my red wine in New Zealand, so I was a step ahead on that one. I was well versed when I arrived here. What do I get into? Can't think of anything that French I'm into really.
How was the French stuff compared to the New Zealand? Because it'd have been all Pinot Noirs, wouldn't it, in New Zealand?
Yeah. Oh, the wine in France is the best. You go to the wine aisle in the supermarkets, the biggest aisle in the shop. You can spend hours in it. My wife goes mad. We go doing a shop, and I'm just like walking around the wine aisle. It's cheap as chips as well, so it's good. I think since I've been here, I've tried loads of French dishes, eating the snails and things, and it's the people of this Catalan region are really passionate about their own things, which is nice to see. Like you go, I went to a do last night and was chatting to somebody. And they were like, "Oh, have you had the such and such a snails?" I was like, "Yeah." No, the Catalan snails, not the French ones. And the people around here are really, really passionate about everything Catalan. So I've tried a few dishes and things like that. It's been great. What I've loved as well is seeing places. There's places so close to here that are amazing. I never knew. When you fly over here, you play in Perpignan, get back on the plane, fly out, complain about the ham and cheese baguettes, and that's it. Whereas living here, you realise I'm an hour away from the mountains one way. I live 2 minutes from the beach. You've got amazing places, Le Cap, where you go for the oysters and seafood, and it's an amazing place. And English people never experience this part of the world, because if you're getting on your budget flight over, you go a little bit further to Spain, don't you? Nobody comes to the south of France, so it is it's an amazing place, and I never ever, not one day since being here, ever taken it for granted.
And just on the game, given your career and obviously everything that you've done, where would you rank a win on Saturday night in your list of achievements?
As high as anything I've done before. Right on par with it. I've been asked that because I've had 3 grand final wins at Wigan, and people say, what was the most special? And 2010 was my first. 2013 we did the double, so it meant something. 2018 was my last ever game for Wigan, which I'd never go back there. So that was special. And this one, we've got the chance to win the first trophy for a club ever. It's, that's got to rank up. It's like, which one of your kids do you love the most? It's difficult to pick, innit? So yeah, it'd rank right alongside anything else I've ever done in the game.
And last one from me, I listened to the podcast with George, and you're quite heavily leaning towards staying in France when your playing career finishes. What would you say are the main reasons for that?
My children, the quality of life they've got. They're used to. We're lucky. We've got a swimming pool in the garden. The weather's good. They're outside. Every minute of the day they're pretty much outside, and I feel like my kids, they're in a school a full French-speaking school, and it was tough at the start, and it still is tough some days. But the character that must be building in my children is something that I value, And also, my kids don't remember England now. I've got 4 kids, all under 6. When I arrived here, I had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. So they can't remember England, my eldest 2. They're now 5 and 4. And then I've had 2 children since being here. So my kids don't know anything else. So I've got another year playing here. I certainly want to stay for a few years after I retire. At that point, I think it'll be more difficult to convince my kids to move to England than anything else. They don't know anything anymore. It was funny. Quick story. When I went back at Christmas last year, I drove my kids past where I grew up, my 2 boys, and I said, "Oh, this is where Dad and your Uncle Joel and Logan used to live." And my son was like, "All right, oh, is that it?" I was like, "Yeah." It's like, yeah, we're lucky that when I grew up, I didn't have all these things you have, and so we didn't have a swimming pool or anything. And my son went, "You didn't have a swimming pool?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I hate my kids." But then I was explaining to my wife, I was like, "How mad is that he thinks?" But my wife was saying, "Well, he doesn't know anymore. He's grown up since he can remember living here. We've had a swimming pool. His friends next door have a swimming pool. It's just something that's normal." And that isn't. If you say you have a swimming pool in England, you think, "Oh, he must be a millionaire with a mansion." We're here. Everybody has a swimming pool in the garden. So my kids are growing up with a completely different outlook on life and where they live. So it's an amazing thing. It is very different. I just can't get used to it. But what makes it all worthwhile in my kids is when I hear them. We'll go to a park and they'll just bump into some other French kids and start speaking to them. I think that is amazing. If I could click my fingers and be fluent in French, I'd pay good money for that. And if I had that opportunity as a kid, and we've had some tough days putting the kids in school, it's like you feel really guarded over your children, don't you? Want to protect them. And I had to peel my son off me on his first day of school and give him to this lady who couldn't even say hello. And I couldn't speak any French at the time. I was like, I'm the worst dad ever. But if I look back at my child and say, if my mum and dad got that opportunity, I hope they'd push me into school as well, because eventually it pays off.